Here we are down in the homework section, down in Bible Database Query Practice. I'm going to put all the things you've learned on a veterinarian's practice database. Now we're going to use an even more important database. So go here, and basically I have given you a database. The link is here under the word here. I found a couple links where I found this kind of thing, and the Bible is out there in many formats, many ways, but it's hard to find it actually in an Access database format, which is pretty handy. But I was able to find one a while back, and I've been using that in the assignment just to show you that, hey, if you have data that you want to search for certain things, that is one text that's probably been searched more than anything in the entire world. Let's get our version of it by just clicking on this, and it'll download an old version of Access. We're going to go ahead and download this. It's in the old, well, actually I did save it in the newer version. It was originally in a .mdb format. I'm going to go ahead and download that. And it's not super huge. I'll put it in my cs101 folder and save it. And before I even worry about what I need to do with it in the assignment, let's just go ahead and explore that. So I'm going to browse over to where that file is. And there I see it's my Bible database KJV. Just double click on that, make a copy of it. Well, it's available for you to download again. I'm going to go ahead and enable content. And now let's just explore what we have here. If you're given a database, the quickest thing to do is just explore the tables. And I'm not sure why that border got pulled way over. I'm just going to go see what's in here. So just one at a time, just browse the table. Double click to see the contents of the table. And there I see it has a number and a number and a number and then text. And from the caption, I can see, well, that's the chapter number, that's the verse number. This must have to do with, well, let's see, it just increments forever. And just must be a number assigned to every verse of the 31,103 verses in the King James Bible. Oh, and here is the book number, is a number 1, and up to lots of book numbers, up to probably 66. Yeah, there you go, 66 books. So it looks like each book of the Bible here in the Basb table has the text of every verse in King James Version format. It looks like there's an added column called red. It has a check mark there. So some are checked, some are not. So it looks like that might be part of perhaps a Bible reading plan. You could mark off whether a particular verse has been read as you read through it. Or the system would do that. As you read it, it would automatically be marking these off. So that's the Basb 1901 table. I did adjust the column, so when I close it, it's going to ask me, do you want to save changes? I'll go ahead and click yes. Well, let's see what Bible Master has in it. Let's see here. So Mass ID, that looks like the primary key, I suppose, has a abbreviated form of the book name, an O or an N for it must be Old Testament or New Testament designation on that column. And let's see, then the actual full name of the book in that column. So MAS real name, MAS book, and MAS ID. Let's right click. Well, we can go to the home page and click the triangle, and just to see what we have here. Oh, look at that. MAS ID is a auto number. And I have a little comment here that says matches the book number in the Basb table. So there's a relationship here between the Bible Master table and the Basb table. If I right-click design view of that, I see that the bib ID is a number. It's not auto-numbered here, but it is a number. It refers to the unique key for every verse. The chapter and verse, I probably should put in a comment here, the chapter number. It seems obvious. Chapter number in this book. that would be the verse number in this chapter. So there's chapter and verse, and then the actual text of the verse. It's called narration. Oh, and I see a new data type here. It's called long text. Long text must allow me to have unlimited length, whereas remember short text limits it to 255 characters. So perhaps we don't want to limit a verse size. There's our book number, reference to the book number, and there's my checkbox. It's a yes/no data type. Now we could always come and modify this structure just to practice our database skills. I could see assigning additional information about verses here. But let's see what else we have in the table. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Saving changes because, yes, I did adjust some column widths. I can close that table. And let's see what the blank master has. Doesn't look very interesting. Maybe something they were experimenting with and didn't put any data in. So it's just an empty table. I can close that. Let's look and see what help says. It gives us some information about our data, and let's see, I can stretch the column there to read it. It looks like they were maybe getting ready to program a Bible search program, and had it in a database. Never completed it, but we're happy to give away the database because it talks about how to install some things, but we don't have to worry about installing that. Maybe somewhere here we'll find out other things. Let's see what we have in this table. I'm just going to arrow down one at a time in each of these rows here. So there's something about a plugin manager. Don't have to worry about that. Something I got from the internet. Let's see, it doesn't say where on the internet. Oh, there's an internet path. Let's see, do you think that path is still good? Cyber counseling website. Just for fun, I'm going to copy it and see if that site is still up. Copy and paste it in my address bar. Nope, it's a dead site. I'm going to put a little note there. Dead link. 4/22/22. Put my initials there. So I notice that's a dead link. Let's see what else we have. Oh, we have some counseling information. Merton Virtual Lab. Cyber counseling. Author of there's the author of the database. Please don't send counseling requests. Not even sure if that's right. I've never tried to mail him. Let's see. Bug reports. Well, since this is something we're only playing with databases, I don't need to worry about bugs. So some interesting things they have about this database, giving it away. And again, it looks like they were planning to write a program for this, having to do with screen settings and all that. So we have the data, but we don't have the program. I suppose maybe some of these, if there were forms in here, they might help us. So that's just a look at the help database table. Saving changes. Notes on translations. It's a few records about translations. Not sure what this is about. Just a silly little OK table. Settings. Maybe they would allow you in the program, planning to allow different settings. SN, serial number perhaps. And switchboard items. Well, it looks like this would be sort of a menu-like thing. That they don't know how to spell license. Probably written out in Europe or England. And translations. Listing of lots of different translations. Perhaps they were planning on providing more translations in this program. So it looks like we have, maybe somebody was starting with this, or somebody built up the database and realized this project is too big, let's just give away the database. and I was able to find it and use it for a class. So just exploring through the tables. Now let's go back and see what the requirements are for this assignment. So go back to Schoology. And let's see, now that we kind of have a hint at what's in this database, first thing that I would want us to do is establish referential and integrity between two tables, Basb 1901 and Bible Master Tables. So let's review this whole referential integrity thing, and I'll go back to database, and let's see, it's between these two tables. So let's take a look again. Bib ID is the ID of a verse, but book num needs to refer to a book in the Bible. Chapter and verse, well, that's part of just the designation of this text. So book num is referring to something. So book num is the key to the table's relationship. And it's even given in the design view. Chapter number for this book, if I look further, does it say text of each verse? Oh, it just says Genesis 1, Exodus 2. What it says in the other table, if I look at Bible Master and look at the design view, I see that the mass ID matches the book number in the Basb 1901 table. So that is the key to the relationship. Everything else is just data regarding the book and the text. But the relationship between this table that has the actual text of every verse and this table, which has the name of the books and their abbreviated name, is the MAS ID in this table relates to the book number in this table. Book num needs to refer to a valid MAS ID. So that's the information I need to then go establish this referential integrity. So let's go do that then. To establish referential integrity, you go to Database Tools, Relationships. And someone has already shown those two tables in our relationships. I'm going to shrink the tabs down, and I can shrink the tables down to make this a little easier to see everything, the lines, the relationships. The key to this is the book num over here is referring to a mass ID here. That's the relationship. So I simply click on one and drag to the other, and that establishes, or that gets me ready to establish that relationship. Let's go ahead and click Enforce Referential Integrity and click Create. And what this means is the database already has referential integrity. Every book num, when it refers to a book number, that book number is a valid book number or valid mass ID in the Bible Master. Now I could go back and also do the cascade update, cascade delete, and that's not going to do me any harm because I'm not planning on editing this Bible and invoking the curses of Revelation on me for adding anything to this book. Maybe that could be part of the validation, or we could lock the text so no one can ever edit it. So that's what it means to establish referential integrity. Let me do that again. If you ever have two tables that you know they're related in some way, usually we design it so it's the same word, that if it's book num here, it's book num here. But we figured out that book num, it means the reference to the mass ID in the other table. That's how we know that's the relationship. And then I can simply click Create. And if the existing data is good, it'll allow that. If there is already referring to a book number that doesn't exist, it would say, sorry, I can't establish referential integrity until you fix what's there. Once you have that, you can just close the design tool, and that part is done. I can just close that. Saving changes just because I changed the layout a little bit. Next time I go to relationships, it'll show in that lovely format. Okay, so that's how we establish referential integrity. So now we've got that part done. And it even gives an explanation in that paragraph that the book num in this table is a unique reference to mass ID in the Bible Masters table. That's what referential integrity means. I don't refer to a book that is not existing. Now it's time to write a few queries. Create a query to display Psalm 23 stored or sorted by verse number. All right, well, let's just get a query going. I'm going to double click on the Home tab, or on the Create tab, and I'll go to Query Design right away. And the query that I want to come out is Psalm 23. Well, the name of the book is in this table, the Bible Master table. The text of the verses is in the Basb table. And because I established those relationships, the connection is already drawn between the two tables in the query design. Well, if I wanted to see the text of any verse in the Bible, well, I want to see the name of the book, the chapter, the verse, and the narration. That's the text of it. And before even putting any criteria, I can view this, and I should see 31,103 results of this query. The entire Bible is returned by that query because there's no criteria. Now I want to come back and only see the verses from Psalm 23, because that's what the homework says. Give me a query named this, query PS23, that displays Psalm 23 sorted by verse number. I'm going to help you out with a few of the first ones here, but then see if you can figure out how to do more. So if I only want Psalm 23, well, the real name of the book is going to be Psalm. The chapter is going to be 23. I'm going to see all the verses, and I'm going to see all the text. Just in case it's not sorted in the database, I can sort ascending by verse number. Let's see what I get when I run this query, or when I go view datasheet view with this query design. Psalm 23. Oh no, I don't get anything. What did I do? Is it a bad query? Well, the name of the book, if I go to Bible Master, I'll see that Psalms is spelled out. It has an S at the end of it. So this should be Psalms plural instead of just the word Psalms. Psalm singular, although that's how we refer to it, Psalm 23. Now when I click View, Datasheet View, there is the text of Psalm 23. Now if I were lazy and didn't remember how to spell Psalms, I could just done PS star or PSA star, and it would have found any book that starts with PSA, which is only that book, and I would have the same results. Now just to make it nice and readable, I'm going to just enlarge the row height, and here I can read through the 6 verses of Psalm 23. I could adjust that column. If I only wanted to see the text, I could come back to Design View and uncheck Show Me the Chapter and Verse, just show me the text, although they need to be in there for my criteria. And now I have the text of Psalm 23. It's the only thing coming out of my query. But since the assignment didn't say for you to only show the verse text, it doesn't hurt to have those turned on, just to verify as you look at the data result. Yep, that's 23 verse 1, 23 verse 2. Remember how in the book they talked about merging data from 2 tables? That's essentially what this is doing. It's merging the data that has book names in there with the display of the verse number, chapter number, and the text narration. Now, the only thing left to do now is to save this as query PS23. So Control S, and I'll call it query _ PS23. If you want Psalms 23 for additional, but we'll just give it the name exactly as requested. And I click OK. And now that query shows up there in my query list. And I can close the query if I'm done with it. It's always safest to close the query. I can always come back to see the results, or right-click, Design View, or on the home page, Datasheet View, Design View. It's safest to create one from scratch so you don't accidentally wipe out a previous one. So that was your first query. Now, let's see how this will work. I need a form for browsing the verses of Psalm 23. Well, I have the query for viewing the verses. How do I make a form? Easy peasy. 3 clicks. I choose the query that I want to create a form to view. I click the Create tab, and I click Form. I didn't ask you to design a form, I just asked you to create a form. So the query click, Create tab click, Form click, and I have a form for viewing Psalm 23 verse by verse. As I arrow through, navigate through, there's my beautiful form. You are welcome to go to Design View of Forms and see how they work. But in this class, just know how forms just make a user-friendly way of viewing the data. And we do want to save this as form PS23. So even though it puts query PS23 because that was the source of the data, I could come in here and edit this, or I could just do a save as. See if it, since I haven't saved it yet, see if it lets me. Yeah, it gives me the choice. Do I want to call it query PS23? Let's rename that to form PS23. Even though I could tell from the icon it was the form created for query PS23, I'm going to put that in the name. And I click OK. Oh, it doesn't like it starting with the word form. All right. Form.
Just capitalize the F.
Yeah, capitalize the F. Let's do that. I forgot that it doesn't like. It's like a special word. It doesn't like you having files with that. Nope, it doesn't like that. Well, how about this? Let's put a 0 for the O instead of the. And it's happy with that. It doesn't like using the word form as the start of a form for some reason. Don't know why that matters. Again, with that, I can open it any time to see that it does let me browse the verses one at a time. And all the design and everything, that's for more advanced database classes. So we got 2 down. Now, create a report displaying Psalm 23. Sounds like 3 clicks is all I need here. Let's see here. I have the query for viewing Psalm 23. I have Create tab, and I click Report, and voila, I have a report on Psalm 23. And actually, you know what I actually did? I clicked Form and did the click. So that's why I had Form. Let's close that, and let's start again with the query. Create report. I think I'll get the same report, but I'd rather make it clear I'm creating a report based on the query, not on the form. And it's just a lovely printable version of what was displayed in my table. In case I want to print that out, it keeps track of when I created it. And let's go ahead and do a Control S, save that, and we'll save this as report. And see if it complains about report in the name. Oh, it doesn't like report in the name. Let's do the same thing. We'll put a 0 for the O. So for this class, you don't have to worry about creating forms except through the 3-click method. Choose where you have the data, choose create, and then click form or report. And that will give you a form of the selected item. If you want to use the form wizard, it takes you through more choices. But unless you're asked to give special things, just create a form, just do the 3-click method. So that was those first 3. Remember, we created the query and then 3 clicks to create the reports. Now we're going to study the Bible in a unique way. Someone has told us that the chapter 3 and verse 16 are somehow inspired, even though there weren't verse numbers. I actually knew a guy that studied the Bible this way. And he got some interesting knowledge. Maybe it's a way to help you memorize something because some interesting things pop up. But don't use it as your way of getting guidance. It's just going to lead you off into perhaps some weird theology. And I'm sure people have done this. But we want to display all the verses, or all the book name, chapter, and verse, and the text of all the 316 verses, wherever they are in the Bible. And we're going to start a new church called 316, based on what we find out from just those selections of verses. All right, so how would we write that query? Well, query design. The tables that have the information is first the name of the book there, and the text of the verses in that table. And because I did the relationships, it automatically draws that line for me of the join query property. Now, I want to see the text of any book with 316. Well, I do want to see the name of the book, so double-click on the real name of the book. I do want to see the chapter and verse, even though it's going to be 316 for all of them, but I need that to establish my criteria. And then I also want to see the content of the verse that was selected. Again, without any criteria, I'll get all 31,103 verses of the King James Bible, so I'm not going to do that. I want some criteria. The criteria is going to be, well, I'm looking for anything that has 3 in the chapter and 16 as the verse. Now, all the books don't have three chapters, and all the chapter 3s don't always have a verse 16. Let's see how many verses there are, 316. By running the query, by clicking View, I see there are 49 chapter 3, verse 16. And to be able to read them all, I'm going to enlarge my row height. And let's see what we would establish as our theology here by just basing our theology on 316. Pain and conception. Start out there, girls. Valley full of trenches. Okay, that's interesting. Keep going. 1 Kings, interesting. Nehemiah, preparing the... Boy, we could get some really strange theology if this were our source of knowledge. Some of them do come out interesting in the New Testament. Baptism, famous John 3:16. Destruction of misery in their ways, the path of the sinner. So some interesting things here. Oh, that's not a bad verse. Colossians 3:16, that's a great verse. But otherwise, you might have some interesting viewpoints. Now, have we satisfied the criteria? Let's take a look at design again. 3 and 16 are the verse. Let's see, were there any other criteria? We could sort them alphabetically by book, alphabetically by narration, but since they come out, actually, I do want them to make sure, just in case they ever were put in the database and out of order by book number, I'm going to add book number, and I'll bring that to the left, and I'm going to sort it by book number, ascending, but I don't need to see the number of the book. This will just guarantee that it is listed in biblical order, although I don't need to see the number. I think it's already in the database by biblical order, so this did make a difference. But just in case someone scrambled the text database table, this would ensure that they are listed in the order they appear in our book numbers ascending. That's not absolutely required, but that just shows you if I do want them sorted. It didn't specify that they had to be sorted, but that's just a little added. Criteria 3, verse 16 is all you need. You do want to see the verse, so you do display narration, but there's no criteria on narration, no criteria on the name. Saving this one as query 316. Save, Control S, query 316. Perhaps you can find a more interesting theology based on other special verse numbers. This guy, he wasn't adamant about it, but he said, let's just study the 316 verses. That you find something very interesting. And maybe that was a way for him to be more interested by establishing some pattern. Okay, now let's look at our next task. Yes, save the format adjustments. Now, we're going to treat this database as a read the Bible through a year. And so we have read through it through the year, and now we want to basically update our database and just mark everything true, actually, for the book whose name is given as a parameter. So I'm just not marking the entire Bible true. I'm saying I'm going to read a book and then come to my database and have the read checkbox set to true for all verses in the book whose name is given as a parameter. So let's just figure out how we would do that. Let's create a query. I'm going to be giving the name of the book, and that's in the Basb master. The read or not, yes or no checkbox is in the Basb table, so I need that table in my query. And I could close. I don't need to see any other tables. So I need to see the name of the book. That's real name. I'm going to turn the read item to be true for that book. But I'm going to be asking them for what book to update the read parameter. So first of all, let's go ahead and figure out how are we going to ask them for the name of the book, given as a parameter. Well, we can go back to the textbook, and that section 2 showed us that if I put square brackets around the criteria, book name, square brackets around some text, that text will become the question. So let's see what happens now when I click Datasheet View. It says book name, question mark. Let's type Genesis. And I click OK. And I see all 1,533 verses in Genesis, showing some of them are checked for read and some, it looks like they all are checked for read. Well, that just shows that I happen to have run it already on Genesis chapter 1. I want to make this an update query. So let's try this again. If I type in Exodus, let's see. Yeah, Exodus, all the read check marks are turned off. And I could one by one go through here and check them off as I read, or just tell this update query to do it for me. So what I need to do is turn this, first of all, into an update query. So I click this. I still have the criteria there in square brackets. But what I want to do is for everything in the book named here, I want to change read to be true. Setting it to be true means turn on or set the check mark to be true. So what do I put here? Update to. I think I could either type yes or true. And what this means is this query will update whatever book name I give here, all the verses in that book name, the read checkbox will be set to true. It's a dangerous query because it's making a mass change to whatever book I name. So let's give it a try. I can go to Datasheet View or I click the Run. I'm going to click Datasheet View. Book name, let's try Exodus. And I click OK. And this is where, oh, it doesn't even give me a warning. Did I make the update query? Let me go back and check. Update. Oh, that's right. If I click Datasheet View, it actually doesn't run. I forgot this. With update queries, I have to click the exclamation point to actually make the changes. Datasheet View just shows me without making the change. Let's hit the exclamation point this time. Now let's type Exodus. Now it should give me the warning. You're about to change so many rows. There's the warning I was expecting. So it's going to automatically update the red check, the checkbox named red to be true, and now I click yes. I don't see anything, but let's go back and look at the Bible Master, and not Bible Master. Let's look at the Bible Text ASV, and let's go down to Exodus, book number 2. Oh, that's chapter 2. Bib 53. Oh, sorry, not Bib 3. I'm looking for chapter 2. No, book number 2. There's book number 2 right there. Yes, all the verses in Exodus now have the red checkbox checked. So I can say, rather than one verse at a time, I can run this query and update. I have read everything in that particular book. Now I haven't saved this query, so I'm going to do Control-S save, and I'm going to save it as update all red. Update all red. Even though they are true, if I run this again by going to the Home tab, or sorry, the Create tab, and clicking, the Design tab, Run, even though they're all true, it'll still give me the warning because there was no criteria, so it's automatically going to change all 1213 without checking to see what's already there. Suppose I want to make this more efficient. I could add criteria, the book name I'm asking for, and if it is false, then turn it to true. Here's another way to make it more efficiently. Only set the ones that to be true that are set to be false right now. Now if I run this, and I add Exodus, it says, hey, I'm going to make a change, but there are 0 rows that need to be changed because they were already true. So that makes it, you could call that making it a little more efficient. Only turn to be true the ones that are currently false. It would save you, if it were a huge database, it would save you that time of making all those changes. That's not required for this one because it just says set red to be true for all verses. It didn't say only for the verses that were false right now. So that is an additional criteria just to make it more efficient. And now I have that query. And I'm going to give you a little time to think about this one. How would you query for the Pauline epistles? How do you know what books were written by Paul? I'll give you a chance to think about that. See if you can come up with a solution. We have the text. Is there a way? I say there is, at least based on what's contained in the verses, specific verses. Here's one way to look at it. I know it's going to be a query with the bib master and the text of the verse. And just for fun, let's just list the verse, the real name of the book, chapter, verse, and the narration. And let's just look for Paul anywhere in the Bible. You might say, well, let's type Paul here. and see what shows up. Nothing shows up. Well, because we need to put wild cards around Paul. Asterisk, Paul, asterisk. Then I'll find all the verses that contain the word Paul in them. And then I run. This would be like any search on any Bible database program. And the number of verses with the name Paul in them are 154. He's mentioned 154 times. Put that in your sermon. Yes, Paul mentioned 154 times in the King James Bible. How do you know that? I wrote the database query. So in Acts, now we could find how many times he's mentioned in Acts by putting criteria name Acts of the apostles in the actual book name. But let's see here, where else is Paul mentioned? Go further down. After Acts, we come to Romans, and it's mentioned one time. Chapter 1, verse 1. 1 Corinthians, well, salutation of me, Paul, with mine own hand. Ooh, I think that's one I missed. Oh, there it is, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 1. Oh, let's sort them. They're sorted in a strange way. Let's go back to our sorting so we get this right. Let's ascend by chapter and ascend by verse number. And then look at the contents. Oh, chapter, and let's also do ascending in the order in the Bible. So let's add the mass ID and start ascending on that first. And now we have them in biblical order. In Acts, in Romans now by chapters lowest to highest. Now they're coming out, making a little more sense. Romans chapter 1, verse 1. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 1. 2 Corinthians 1, 1. It looks like first verse of the first chapter, and it looks like he always mentions his name first, if it's the one he wrote. So what's this making this query pretty easy? Just look for verses, chapter 1, verse 1 of any book. If they start with the word Paul, it's probably Paul's greeting. We could always verify that too. So let's add that to our criteria. Go back to the design view. And instead of the narration like Paul star, let's put like, instead of like star Paul star, make that to be like Paul star. So the verse is going to start with the name Paul. And just for extra clarity, let's make sure that the criteria is on the same line. It has to be in chapter 1 and verse 1, starting with Paul. That should be all the books that are written by Paul. Now, I'd have to go back and check the greetings of the other books to see if we think this was written by Paul, but he didn't start with Paul, like maybe the book of Hebrews, people argue. But otherwise, here I have the list of all the books that start with the very first verse, Paul and etc. We're going to call those the Pauline Epistles. Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1 Thessalonians. Sure looks like those are the Pauline epistles. Now, think about any Bible programs out there. I don't know of any that will let you do a query like this on the Bible. Find me all the verses, all the books that have this criteria in them. So you could have some unique type Bible searches that someone might come to you and say, wait a minute, what program are you using to figure that out? You have access as your tool. You can write fancier queries that maybe if you knew exactly the program, how they determine their searching for things, you might find the answer. But you could do a lot fancier things with Access and really get perhaps some interesting studies. I'm going to show you another one like that. Let's go ahead and save this one. And the query name for this one needs to be Query Pauline. query underscore Pauline. The Pauline Epistles. Now, just for we'll work on the rest of these on Friday. I'm going to give you one, or do we have one here? Oh, we don't have one here. This is one I want to give you. See if you can figure this one out and see how this works. I'm going to create a query using query design. The same two tables that we've been doing the whole time for this one. And I'm going to get the book, chapter, and verse displayed. Real name. Oh, I got it in the wrong order. Real name, chapter, verse, narration. But I'm going to add a custom field just to give us some practice at this. I'm going to add a column at the end that I'm going to call length. And I type length colon. That means the name that I'm going to give this column is length. And the calculation here is going to be a function which is length. I think it's spelling out the word length. Let's find out. The length of the square bracket narration. So length parenthesis, square bracket narration, square bracket parenthesis. And I'm going to click on the show this because I'm just curious what it will show. And let's see what I get. Did give me an error, but it's not showing any numbers there. Did I do something wrong? Let's go down to the oh, I need to tell the table. Maybe I have to tell the table there. Let's try that. No, I don't think I need to put a table there. What's wrong with that? Is it LEN? Let's try LEN. Oh, that seems like it might be the red thing. Let's try LEN. Oh, did I uncheck? Oh, the check mark I accidentally left unchecked. There we go. Now I have the length of the verse. Let's see what I get if I had typed out length. I forgot I wasn't paying attention. The check mark was unchecked. Let's see. There we go. Length. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Let's do the G in there. Oh, length is not defined, but LEN is defined. So I can get the length of every verse in the Bible based on the number of letters. Now, this is the number of letters, not the number of words. So let's sort them, slowest, ascending, shortest to longest. Oh, sorry, the sort ascending, shortest to longest. What do you think the shortest number of letters in the verse of the Bible are? John 1:15. It looks to me like that might be a typo in the Bible text. There we do get Gospel of John, chapter 11:35, and tied for second place, Rejoice Always, and Luke 20:30. Now I don't think many people know that this verse is just as short as Rejoice Always. And way back in First Chronicles, there's a verse with only 3 short names in there. So, for your Bible trivia questions, here's a query that I don't know if any other Bible search engine will give you. And if I want to see, either I can go to the very bottom and see the longest verse, or edit my query and change that from sort ascending to sort descending by length. And I will see that the longest verse in the Bible has 508 letters in Esther 8, verse 9. I doubt many people know that. So we'll just save that query as verse length. Verse length. So some cool things you can do if you know some of the functions available to you in calculations that Access can do for you. We'll stop there. We'll do a little more practice on Friday. And then the plan for next week is to prepare you for the final with some extra little exercises, just hands-on, work on the stuff that it's easy to forget but is important to know on the final. All right, have a wonderful day. You are now Bible database query experts. Look at that. If you have the wrong function but don't have the check mark, it doesn't care. It did care. Why did it do it last time? Third John 1:15. Huh?
Well, Phil Lloyd just did his senior project presentation.
How'd it go?
It was terrible. I don't think that he really thought through
He said what?
presenting. Yeah, his project is great,
Yeah.
but he did not really know how to explain it, express it. So I have to give him a redo. But he did a pretty good job. He's got a pfSense machine with OpenVPN, a website where you can get the installer to configure OpenVPN and then connect, and it connects you to a different website when you connect through the VPN.
Yeah, all his writing assignments were very terse.
Yeah.
Didn't explain, even though I spelled out, here's what you need to have, he could write what he felt he needed to write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Communication.
He's got a little bit of work left to do, but